Well, good morning, students, and today we are continuing with the same chapter, that is the third chapter from your text, First Flight, titled Two Stories About Flying. And this is the second part of the same story, Black Aeroplane by Frederick Forsyth. Now, the first part was about a young seagull and his experiences during his first flight, his fears and concerns. In the second part, we will be dealing with the human aspect of it, that is, the experience of flying, which includes a human being in the form of a pilot who is flying an aeroplane. What are the difficulties that he endures is what the story is all about. And it is about a certain specific episode. All right? It is about a certain specific episode. It's not about how he learned to fly, but about his struggles as a pilot during one misadventure. And so, with that, we start with the text. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone, high up above the sleeping countryside. I was flying my old Dakota airplane over France back to England. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. And so the story begins with a pilot flying his airplane, and it was a very normal routine day in his life. The skies were clear. He was flying over France in a Dakota model airplane and flying back to England. And he looked at the time, it was 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris control room, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the airplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on the radio and said, Paris control, Dakota DS 088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS 088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS 088, over. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees east towards England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good, big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. So he had a conversation with the flight deck control as well, all right? Uh, and he, over the radio, he called the Paris control room because he was flying over Paris, and he let the air control office in Paris know that he was passing through their airspace and heading towards England. And even the airspace control at Paris confirmed that, and they even gave him directions as to which degree his plane should be turned to be able to fly to England. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I knew I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. Now, he had flown about 150 kilometers away from Paris when suddenly there were storm clouds, very dark clouds, and he did not have enough fuel to go around them or go above of them. Right? So he was in a dilemma. He had a problem at hand. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. I'll take the risk, I thought. and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. So one side of his mind told him that he should return to Paris. It's just 150 kilometers. The weather is not safe for flying and he does not have enough fuel as well. But then his heart wanted to go back to England. He was thinking about the breakfast, the English breakfast, and he said, I'll take the risk. And so he flew straight into the storm clouds. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Paris control. Paris control. Can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm. Then, in the black clouds quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turned towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying. Follow me. He knows that I'm lost, I thought. He's trying to help me. And so, as he entered the storm clouds, and as mentioned earlier, his plane was quite an old one. And so, suddenly his compass started spinning round and round. The compass was not working, so he didn't know where he was going. And then he tried calling the Paris radio control tower, and his radio wasn't even working. So he was lost now. He was alone in the sky, none of the instruments working, and he was sure to land in a crash. But then suddenly, out of the black clouds, came out a black aeroplane. It had no lights on his wings, and yet our pilot could see the pilot inside the plane, and he waved with his hand signaling that, follow me. He knew that he was lost, and he was happy to see another human being in such a dangerous time or point in his life. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. After half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. Now, there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. I was starting to feel frightened again. But then it started to go down, and I followed through the storm. And so that strange, mysterious plane, it came in front of him and sort of guided him to follow him. And so he, having no compass, no radio, he had no other choice. He followed the plane like an obedient child. And then there came a point in time when he realized that he has only 5 to 10 minutes of fuel left inside the airplane. So he was afraid once again, but then he noticed that the black plane was slowly going down, signaling that it was landing, and he was very relieved. Suddenly, I came out of the clouds and saw two long straight lines of light in front of me. It was a runway, an airport. I was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere. And so, as he was going down, suddenly he saw two rows of lights. All right, it was a runway where planes land, and he was very relieved. And he looked around for the black aeroplane, his friend, his guide, who had brought him out of such a dangerous state. But then the plane was nowhere to be seen, neither the plane nor the pilot. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say thank you. So he landed He was thankful that he was able to get out of the plane. He went to the control tower. There was a person there, and he said he wanted to inquire a few things as to where he was and who was the pilot that saved him. He wanted to thank the pilot. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Another aeroplane up there in the storm? No other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. But the woman on the table was surprised, and she laughed even. She said, "What other aeroplane? In such a storm, who would be foolish enough to be riding aeroplanes up in the sky? Yours was the only one we saw on the radar. So who helped me arrive there safely without a compass or radio and without any more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without lights?" And so the story ends with our pilot wondering who it was. He saw a black aeroplane. He saw a person flying that aeroplane, and the aeroplane did guide him out of danger so that he could land safely on a runway. But then he is only left wondering as to who that person was or where that aeroplane disappeared to. And so, with this, we complete the second part of the third chapter, two stories about flying, titled The Black Aeroplane. And what your next course of action should be is you should be going through the text line by line as the story is being read out to you via this video. You do the same, you go through the story, find the difficult words, underline it, take down the meaning as well. All right? Until the next class, take care.